He humiliated me in front of everyone, his friends, his ex, even his own parents. He told me I didn't fit into their circle, that my dress was too cheap, and that I should sit aside, so as not to spoil the atmosphere. I remained silent then because I loved him. But a week later, when his company was hosting a corporate event, I showed up not as his girlfriend, but as the photographer. And on the screen, instead of his presentation, everyone saw the truth, his messages to other women, his insults, his deceit. That's when he learned that humiliation can hurt in different ways. Because now, they weren't laughing at me. My name is Gina. When I first met Luke, it felt like the world had finally fallen into place. He was exactly the type of man who makes you believe all previous disappointments were just preparation for something grand. Tall, self-assured, with that easy smile that could melt even the hardest heart. We met at a college party when he helped me carry boxes of decorations. I remember him joking, "If you work as hard as you are now, you must be carrying your heart to someone with the same care." I laughed then, and he replied, "Good, because I think I want you to carry it to me." I was struck by how attentive he was. Luke texted good morning every day, brought coffee to my work, and listened to my stories about photography, my favorite hobby. He called me his muse and said I would become famous one day. And I, the naive one, believed every word. Our relationship seemed perfect. He was ambitious, worked at a prestigious company, and had an impeccable reputation among his friends. His family wealthy, influential, people who were used to looking down on others. But I paid no mind to that. I simply loved him. But over time, small things began to change. First, light comments. "A little more makeup would suit you. You could lose a few pounds just for health. That dress, well, it's not really my style." I laughed because I thought they were harmless jokes. But gradually, his words became colder, sharper. He no longer listened when I spoke of my dreams. He said photography was a hobby for those who don't know what to do seriously. His friends looked at me with condescending smiles. One time, I heard one of them say, "She's sweet, but not his league." Luke just shrugged, offering no denial. That was the first time I felt something inside me tighten. I wanted to scream, but I was silent. Because I believed it was just a phase. Because everyone says true relationships require patience. And I endured. I didn't realize that what I mistook for love was slowly turning into contempt, hidden behind beautiful words. His birthday was supposed to be a special event, as he called it. Luke loved attention. He was always the center of the company, the one who cracked jokes, told stories, whom everyone listened to. And I was by his side, quiet, smiling, ready to support him in any situation. A few weeks before the party, I started planning a surprise. I wanted to make him happy. I ordered a personalized gift, a watch engraved with "Forever Beside You," found old photos from our trips, and made a small photo album, all with love, sincerely, a homemade touch. I also bought a new dress, soft beige, elegant, not luxurious, but tasteful. I stood in front of the mirror for hours, choosing a hairstyle, even applying a little brighter makeup than usual. Also, I could hear him say just one thing: "You're incredible." When I told Luke I already had a gift, he only shrugged. "Oh, good. But listen, don't overdo it, okay? It's just a party, not a wedding." I smiled, although something inside me ached. "Of course. I just want everything to be nice." He looked at me with a condescending smile. "Gina, sometimes you try too hard. Be simpler." His words hurt, but I still wanted to make the evening special. The day before, I asked if I should invite any of my friends. We celebrated together last year, after all. He quickly replied, "No need. It'll be a closed circle, just my friends, colleagues, a few family members. You know, I don't want things to look weird." Weird? That word stuck in me like a bone. I tried to ask what he meant, but he immediately changed the subject. The next day, he sent a message. "The dress code is formal. And, Gina, maybe choose something modest. No bright colors. Just restrained." Okay. I stared at that message for a long time. Modest. No bright colors. Not too noticeable. As if he was afraid I would ruin the picture of his perfect evening. I put down the phone and just sat in silence. It was painful, but I still went to buy a new dress, a restrained black one with open shoulders. It felt right, not too loud, but dignified. My friend Melissa said, "If he doesn't see you in that dress, then he's just blind." I just smiled. The evening before the celebration, I asked Luke if I could help with preparations, decorate the hall, greet guests. He answered briefly, "No, everything is organized. Just come. And Gina, please, not too late and not too early. About half an hour after the start, okay? And don't forget that, well, you don't necessarily have to sit next to me. There will be a lot of people. Just behave naturally. Behave naturally." I didn't realize then that he was simply setting the stage where I was supposed to be an extra, a backdrop for his perfect life. That night, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. All his phrases spun in my head like broken records. Be simpler. Don't overdo it. Don't sit next to me. And I still believed that maybe after the party, he would say I was exaggerating, that it was all nonsense, and we would laugh together. I didn't know yet that the next day he would humiliate me in front of everyone, so badly that I would remember that evening for the rest of my life. I remember that evening down to the smallest detail, the smell of perfume, the sparkle of glasses, the quiet laughter in the hall. The celebration was held in an expensive restaurant on the rooftop of a downtown hotel. The Manhattan panorama glittered with lights, and it felt like it would truly be a magical night. I arrived a little later, as he had requested. My heart was beating so fast that I even held my breath before the entrance to calm down. When I walked in, I immediately saw Luke. He was standing by the bar, smiling, talking to friends. Next to him was a tall blonde in a red dress. The ex. I had only seen her in photos on social media, but I recognized her instantly. She touched his shoulder, whispered something to him, and he laughed, that same laugh that once belonged only to me. I approached, and he finally noticed me. His smile vanished for a second. "Oh, Gina. You came. Good. Listen, please sit over there." He gestured toward a distant table, by the window, almost in the shadow. I asked, bewildered, "Why not with you?" "We're." "Gina, don't start, okay? Just." "My close friends and family are there right now. I don't want everyone asking strange questions. Sit there, we'll talk later." I stood there as if struck. The place was crowded, everyone was laughing, waiters were serving champagne, and I stood in the middle of the hall, like a stranger. His mother was sitting at the main table next to his father. She looked me up and down and, without even trying to speak softly, said to her friend, "Poor girl, that dress must be from a clearance sale. And the hairstyle, like a student's." The friend laughed, and Luke pretended not to hear anything. I felt my face flush. I wanted to sink through the floor. But I took a breath, straightened my back, and walked to my table. A few of his colleagues I didn't know were sitting behind me. They exchanged glances when they found out I was his girlfriend. One of them, smiling, said, "Oh, so it's you." We thought he was joking when he said he was dating a photographer. He usually likes a different type. "A different type?" I asked, trying to keep a smile. "Well, you know, more glamorous, more confident. But you're also interesting in your own way." He winked, and I wanted to flee. But I sat there, clutching a napkin in my hands. After a while, the toasts began. Luke stood up, took a glass, and raised it. "I want to thank everyone who is here with me today. My friends, colleagues, family, everyone who is truly important in my life." I waited for him to at least glance at me. Just once. But he didn't even look in my direction. The ex stood next to him, holding a glass of champagne, and his entire company applauded. I felt my heart simply shatter. Every word, every laugh cut like glass. His mother raised her glass and said, "We are all proud of you, Luke. You deserve the best, and I'm sure fate will give it to you." She looked my way coldly, contemptuously, as if hinting that I was certainly not the best. Laughter. Music. Lights. And inside, emptiness. I sat quietly until the end of the evening, pretending everything was fine. When it was time for cake and photos, he didn't even invite me into the frame. I just watched as they all laughed, hugged, and took pictures without me. Later, I went out onto the balcony to catch my breath. The wind was cold, and it seemed to blow out the last crumbs of my dignity. I stood and looked at the city lights while tears quietly streamed down my cheeks. When I returned inside, he was gone. I was told he had stepped out for a smoke, but I saw him through the glass, standing next to that same blonde, hugging her, leaning closer, and kissing her. Something clicked in my head. Not pain, no. Coldness. I just grabbed my purse, went downstairs, and called a taxi. The driver asked if everything was all right, and I only said, yes. The party is just over. Although in reality, it wasn't the party that was over. It was me. The next morning, I woke up to soft sunlight flooding the room, but it felt like night inside me. I didn't immediately recall the events of the previous evening, but when photos from his party popped up on my phone, everyone smiling, happy, next to him, my heart sank into the void again. In one shot, he stood with the same blonde, his hand on her waist, his face tilted toward her cheek. And beneath the photo, the caption, "Best night with those who truly matter," and then I understood, he didn't just forget about me. He deliberately erased me from his own life. I sat on the floor, staring at the phone, and everything inside me was boiling. Shame, anger, despair, but most of all, outrage. I had given him a year of my life. I adjusted to his schedule, taste, and mood. I changed myself consciously and unconsciously. I stopped wearing my favorite bright clothes because it looks childish. I stopped going to parties because there are only meaningless conversations. I even almost stopped taking photos because there's no point. Wasting time on nonsense. He reduced me to a convenient shadow. And I allowed it. That day, I turned off my phone and just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. His phrases spun in my head, sit at a different table. Only close ones there. Behave naturally. I felt like I had been wiped out with an eraser. And then, closer to evening, the doorbell rang. Melissa, my best friend, stood on the threshold. She didn't even ask, she just hugged me. I saw the photos, she whispered. You shouldn't have put up with that. I was silent. But then I spoke, quietly, but firmly, I won't be silent anymore. We were sitting in the kitchen, drinking tea, when a thought sparked in my mind. Melissa worked at a media agency and often photographed corporate events. She casually mentioned that a company was looking for a photographer for its annual corporate party. By the way, that's the company where Luke works, she said, scrolling through her phone. I flinched. Seriously? Yes. Someone from their HR wrote in the chat. They need someone inconspicuous, professional, to take photos for the website. And she looked at me, narrowing her eyes. Gina. I know that look. What are you planning? I just smiled. Let's just say, I want to thank Luke for his birthday. In my own style. The next day, I accepted the job. They needed a female photographer. I was a perfect fit. I even used a different last name, just so no one would guess. But before that, I did one more thing. I opened the old laptop that Luke often left at my place. I knew the password, his birthday. Ironic, right? When the screen lit up, I didn't even know what I was looking for. But I found more than I wanted. A projects folder with dozens of documents, photos, and messages. And among them, the history of his messenger correspondence, screenshots of conversations with various women. I read and couldn't believe it. My girlfriend is as boring as accounting. She's convenient until I find someone better. Sometimes I think she's only with me because of the status. No fire with her. But with you, all fire, I felt something cold growing inside me. It wasn't pain anymore. It was the calm before the storm. I transferred all those files to a flash drive. When I inserted it into the laptop and saw the green indicator blinking on the screen, only one thought came to mind. For once in his life, he will feel shame. I knew he had a corporate event coming up, the annual presentation, a big report to the entire department and management. And I also knew how to make the truth appear on the screen instead of graphs and numbers. I didn't need to yell, argue, or break things. I simply decided to show people who he really was. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a strength emerge in me. Real, cold, calm. The kind he never expected from quiet, simple Gina. I knew that impulsive bursts of anger would achieve nothing. If I wanted this to hit hard, everything had to be done coldly, professionally, and ruthlessly precisely. Revenge should look not like a tantrum, but like evidence. So I sat down, opened my laptop, and started planning step by step. The first step, the image. I didn't want to look like the same girl from his party, confused, in tears, running off the balcony. I needed an appearance that spoke for itself, confident, elegant, answerable to no one. I chose the black dress, the same one I bought before his birthday. It fit perfectly, a simple cut, open shoulders, knee length. Not flashy, but noticeable. The hairstyle, a sleek bun, makeup neat, eyes emphasized, lips matte. I wanted people to look at me and perceive me as a professional, a photographer who came to do her job. The second step, the technique. Melissa helped me secure the invitation. She called the department, confirmed the date, and said she would send my portfolio. She pretended it was a different Gina, a different last name, a different email. They agreed. We need someone discreet, hardworking, to be convenient and professional. Perfect. The third step, the content. I already had the flash drive with his correspondence. But simply having screenshots in a folder is one thing. Having those screenshots appear on a large screen in front of the entire department as a presentation is another. I opened PowerPoint and started working. I renamed the file to Q4_results_presentation_final_v3.pptx, the precise, official name managers expected to see. Inside, a few slides with headers, pre-prepared diagrams, and empty spaces for graphs. I knew no one would review the file in detail before the showing. It was a routine corporate evening, and the presentation would automatically launch in full screen. Then I inserted the screenshots. But not chaotically, I laid them out as a line of evidence. The first slide, general statistics, looked like a report. The second, key achievements. Here I inserted the first message. She is too simple for me. The third, personal notes. Screenshots with compliments to others and phrases about the convenient girlfriend. The fourth, a series of screenshots of flirting and meetings. Above each screenshot, I wrote a short time marker, date and time, so it looked documentary. In the finale, I added the photo from his party where he hugs the blonde, with the caption, "Off-duty behavior, affects internal reputation." I also made a copy of the presentation and placed it on the flash drive where work files were usually stored, presentations/annual/. And so it wouldn't look suspicious, I added a few real slides with official templates, so the file looked businesslike on the surface. Then I asked my friend Nick, the IT guy from college who now freelances, to check if there were any technical flaws in my manipulations. He smiled and said, "Looks like it's fresh from a PR manager's hands." Flawless. Together, we tested it, launched the presentation on his old projector, checked that all the images displayed correctly, and that nothing was out of place. Nick advised, it needs to turn on in full screen and automatically, without buttons. I set it to auto-launch. The next point, my cover. I prepared a different name for my business card, a different email, a different phone number, a virtual SIM from Melissa. I didn't want anyone to connect me to Luke in a minute. Let them first see the fact, and only then the person. I took a few professional photos for the portfolio, specifically neutral ones, shooting hands at work, people in the frame, to build trust. Being the photographer gave me a code of conduct, respect, and access. People treat specialists differently. During the preparation, I felt a strange sentiment, not euphoria, not hatred, but a kind of cold clarity. I didn't want to ruin Luke's life. I only wanted him to see himself from the perspective of the person he humiliated every time he wanted to look better. And for those who applauded his words to those who truly matter to see that truth themselves now on the big screen. The last step, internal. I practiced my gaze in the mirror. No tears, no yelling, just composure. A professional lens does not require emotions. It captures the moment. I wanted to be the camera and the cold eye that captures the truth. When D-Day arrived, I had no doubts. I knew it would turn out as planned. And so, the evening, an hour before the start, I checked the flash drive one more time, confident that all the slides were in place. Melissa whispered, "You don't have to do this if you're scared." I replied simply, "I'm not scared." The feeling was uncomfortable, but clear like the cold water used to wipe away dust before opening the chest of truth. I got into the taxi, checked my pockets, opened my camera bag, and took a deep breath. Today he would see what he had been diligently hiding. And people would see who he was, not his version, but the reality, packaged in slides, signed with dates and messages. This was the moment when revenge ceased to be personal. It became the restoration of justice. I was ready. The morning of the corporate event began with a strange, cold feeling in my stomach, neither fear nor joy, just a sharp, transparent clarity. I put on the black dress, twisted my hair into a sleek bun, and styled my eyebrows so my gaze was expressive, but without exaggeration. I applied matte lipstick and looked at myself in the mirror. My face was calm. This was my trump card, external composure beneath the thin skin of tension. Melissa drove me to the building. I held the camera bag and the flash drive, a business card with a different last name in my pocket. No one was supposed to suspect who I was. This gave me freedom. We walked in, and I felt a slight electricity in the air. People in suits, office chatter, tables with canapes. No one paid special attention to me, and that was good. A professional must be inconspicuous until the time is right. I performed my work as instructed, photographing the decorations, shots of the company's key people, working moments, smiles, toasts, for the website and internal archives. Closer to the start of the official part, I took a few photos of Luke from afar. He stood with his company, laughed, and looked confident as always. My heart beat faster, but externally I was cool-headed. I approached, took shots with subtext, a hand on his shoulder, a toast, a friendly conversation. They had no idea that I held a document in the flash drive that could destroy that picture. When the presentation began, I stood in the first row, next to the camera on the tripod. Luke walked onto the stage, cracked jokes, received applause. He looked as if nothing had happened. My body remembered the past pain, but my mind said, "You are here for the facts. You are a tool, but a tool of truth." The show started as usual. Mundane slides of results, graphs, key performance indicators. I initially did my job, photographing the presentation, capturing the audience's reactions, catching moments. But then, towards the end of the standard part, when I knew the time was right, I positioned the camera to capture not only the screen, but also Luke's face the moment he realized what was happening. My heart tightened slightly, but the composure remained. The screen flickered. Official slides first, second. And then something else began to appear. The first photo, a phrase taken out of context, written in lilac text on a white background. "She is boring to me." A whisper ran through the hall like a cold wave. Luke stumbled, but kept his composure. I captured every reaction, surprise, glances, the first suspicions. Following the second slide, a series of screenshots of correspondence, messages with signatures and time markers. Someone in the first row gasped. Someone found it funny, but not in a good way. The ex, who had recently been sitting flirtatiously next to him, pulled out her phone, started streaming, and the video instantly spread through their internal chats. Luke tried to approach the screen, but he couldn't. The audio was already on. Everyone saw. Everyone read. He turned pale. The smile left his face like a shadow at dusk. I felt like every frame of the presentation worked like a leather strap. It didn't humiliate loudly, but it squeezed diligently and precisely. People began to look at each other, whispering. Several men covered their mouths with their hands. Someone whispered, "This can't be true." But the slides kept coming, details, dates, phrases. The accompanying captions underscored the obvious. This was not a joke, not words taken out of context. It was a systematic attitude. I took photos of his reaction, how his lips trembled, how his hand reached for the pocket where his phone lay. He tried to turn off the projector. His assistants, confused, ran over, but slide after slide had already spread across phones. The feeling was as if someone had opened a complicated door and let out a shadow. People saw what they had never noticed before. I remember his father, who stood in the first row, swaying, then looking grimly at his son. His mother covered her face with her palm. The ex stood there, her lips pressed together, sadness and shame all at once. Someone started laughing nervously. Another woman whispered, "How could he?" And that was a question that no longer needed an answer. Luke ran up to me, grabbed my arm, but not with familiar warmth. His touch was panicked and confused. He whispered, "What have you done?" I looked him in the eyes, not with hatred, not with an outburst, but with the firm, cold composure I had practiced in the mirror. I showed people the truth, I said quietly, but clearly. What you do in the shadows is now in the light. Phones started ringing in the crowd, recording, posting, commenting. Someone said HR, someone said this is rough. Luke looked like he was being roasted in his own fire. His eyes searched for support, but the support was gone. His friends looked at him and didn't know what to say. After the slides finished, a silence hung in the air that made it colder. I took a few final shots, the faces of colleagues, the telling pause of his mother, Luke's clenched fist. I knew these photos would be proof, not only for me but for people to remember how easily one life can be hidden behind happy pictures. When the evening came to an end, I packed my equipment. Luke tried to yell something in my direction, throw insults, ask for explanations, but his voice was drowned out in the general noise. I walked out of the building into the cool night air and felt the pressure in my chest slightly subside. This was not a victory in the traditional sense. I did not want to ruin a life. But I gave people a choice. They now saw the truth, and everyone had to decide how to react to it. That's how I left the corporate event, not as a scorned woman seeking revenge, but as a professional who did her job. And as a person who regained her dignity.